has called up or is drafting another 160,000 fighters. So there doesn't seem to be a ceasefire deal coming. We also, of course, have the whole issue with the tariffs. We'll get into that a little bit later in the broadcast. And in fact, some are saying this is going to be very good for the trucking industry in America. Some folks are saying this is going to be good for railroad and trucking in America. And now, speaking of trucking, we are gaining a lot of followers on X. I was just told before we went on the air, a lot of over-the-road professional drivers are now following us on X, which is what, Logan, at World YouTube? Yeah. And what? House Live. And House Live, HOWSE, at House Live, HOWSE, and World YouTube. The story that we're covering, and we're one of the, I guess, really the first national news outlet to bring attention to it, said Shannon yesterday with American Truckers. And he's already reached out to us today to report more updates on a fatal crash involving another trucker. So we're not getting off this. This isn't a one and done type show on what's happening on the American roads. To the threat of Americans, our national security, our food. Why are cartels, as we heard in testimony before a Arkansas committee, why are cartels manufacturing counterfeit CDL licenses? So we're not done with this. In fact, we have a news story to report. April 1st, here's a headline, April 1st, high school baseball player and parents killed in crash on way to the game. Now, what we need here is to know who's the driver. A Central Texas high school baseball player and his parents were killed when they were hit by a semi-truck in a construction zone while the family was on the way to the player's baseball game. And this happened on Monday evening. This week, folks, April 1st. The Texas Department of Public Safety said parents Clint and Megan McGafty died in the crash, and the Rogers Independent School District confirmed their son, Connor McGafty, was also killed. So here's what we'd like to know. Who was the driver? Who was the driver? We need to be asking this of every crash that involves a semi-truck, an 18-wheeler, or even these flatbed trucks. Who's the driver? Because I think we're going to find that the stats are being covered up. We have another story. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Related to, sadly, a sheriff. I believe it's a sheriff. Let's see here. I think this occurred in Arizona. I guess he's injured. Thankfully, not killed. Latest I can see. At approximately 7:30 p.m., April 2nd, that's yesterday, an Arizona Highway Patrol state trooper was parked on the right shoulder of a westbound I-10 in the area of milepost 117 in Buckeye. The trooper was finishing paperwork from a non-injury collision report he had just taken and was parked approximately 20 feet off the highway on the dirt shoulder. A white Dodge Ram 3500 truck towing a vehicle trailer with 3 vehicles on board traveled off-right and off the highway and collided with the trooper's vehicle at a significant speed. As a result of the collision, the trooper's vehicle was pushed further off-right approximately 60 feet. The trooper was transported with possible head injuries and is currently being evaluated at a hospital to determine the exact extent of his injuries. Now we're being told this was a suspected non-citizen driver under the influence of alcohol. So this is developing. This is a story that needs to be obviously investigated. It needs to be vetted. What was the training, the qualifications, the licensing of the commercial vehicle, and the driver? But right now, suspected non-citizen driver. Now, it seems as though these are occurring almost on a daily basis now. Here we have one American truckers just put out 2 hours ago. Criminal non-citizen deported for the 39th time. ICE Houston just deported a Mexican criminal for the 39th time. And they provided the screenshot. So we're going to keep you posted on this, folks. This is not a one and done, as I said. We're going to stay on it. I do hope all of you are grabbing the shows on this, the articles. If you go to Worldview Tube, on the radio page, the TV page, you'll find the MP3, you'll find the video. On the news site, you'll find where we write articles. And please be tweeting all of this. Tweet all of this at Secretary Sec Duffy, SecDuffy, Sec Duffy, at Sec Duffy. That's the Secretary of Transportation. Be tweeting this at him, please. Say we need an investigation. We need American truckers. We need the two gentlemen with American truckers, Shannon and Harvey, involved in an immediate emergency commission at Sec Duffy, Duffy. We also want to send this to the president at POTUS. President of the United States is what that stands for, at POTUS, and at real Donald Trump. Again, these guys are busy. They're doing the best they can. They are spinning a lot of plates in the air right now. Pretty much everything is an emergency. Everything is a crisis. This is what happens when you turn your government over to the Marxist, the globalist, the Islamist, Muslim Brotherhood, and all these people that have penetrated into our government. Speaking of Muslim Brotherhood, I have a bunch of video clips I'm going to play tonight. More imams openly telling you, yeah, jihad is part of Islam. You hear? It's right here. Oh, they tell you that we want peace. That's only once you surrender. More and more of these imams, even in America, are admitting, oh, no. Jihad is part of our religion. Why are they willing to say this now? Because I think, as Sharam has been warning, they're moving from the lower house to the upper house. They've reached a tipping point. I think it was in California. I have a video I'm going to share tonight. California, another gigantic mosque. This one in California. They're taking over, folks. And very few people want to talk about so many of these issues. Whether it's the trucking issue that involves all these illegals, illegal invaders, the cartels, whether it's the Islamists that are building massive, humongous mosques. And we know what goes on in those because, in fact, it's probably time to get an update tonight from David Gobbets, who's been into about 425 of the mosques in America. We know what's being taught in there, folks. We know what they're saying in their Friday prayers about bringing down America. But yet, I'm sorry, the great threat to America are MAGA people, conservative Christians, pro-lifers, those who go to Latin Mass, moms at homeschool meetings. Those are the great threats of the Biden regime. Not the drug cartels, not the drug crisis, not the open border, not all the terror cells in the country, not all the mosques that are teaching Friday prayers about overthrowing America, taking care of the infidel. You think the Trump administration guys are busy? They are so busy. And can I just ask you to pray for our friend right now, Ed Martin? Pray for Ed Martin. Apparently they're what's his name, from California, Shifty Schiff. Apparently, Adam Schiff is bragging he is going to use whatever power he has as a U.S. Senator to stop Ed Martin from becoming the permanent U.S. District Attorney for Washington, D.C. He's acting right now. Why? Why are they so afraid of Ed Martin, who, by the way, has sat at this very news desk and broadcast with me, who Logan says has sat in as a guest host on our 12 o'clock show, 12 noon show, probably 50 times. Oh, yeah, we know Ed very well. Why is Adam Schiff so afraid of a man like Ed Martin? So I'm going to ask you guys to pray for Ed Martin. I'm going to ask you to pray, because we believe the prayers of the righteous availeth much. We talk all the time on this broadcast and over the years about the need to see men into key positions where righteousness can prevail and the purpose and function of government, reward the righteous, punish the wicked, can actually happen. And I'm likely today, Logan, if you remind me, to text Ed the story about the truckers, because I bet you Ed Martin might be able to also forward that to some key people. What you think, Logan? So I've been texting with Ed a little bit, but I've tried to leave him alone because he's, well, like so many of these people in the administration, there's not enough hours in the day. But we're going to ask you to pray for Ed Martin that God would providentially do what he wills, and we pray that his will is the one I'm wanting, which is to see that Ed Martin is able to overcome these objectives, these obstacles, these attacks, and be confirmed as not just the acting or temporary U.S. District Attorney for D.C., but permanent. We need to be praying for more people like Ed Martin to get into key places to protect religious liberty, religious freedoms, freedom of speech, to stop the weaponization of the government, to get to the bottom of who did it. What happened on January 6th? The weaponization of the DOJ, the FBI, all of these things. We have to get to the bottom of this. And there has to be, not revenge, no. There has to be restitution. There has to be punishment by the law so that there is exactly what is the function of the law, which is to make people afraid of breaking the law. Romans 13, if you do what is good, you'll have no fear, for the elected official is a minister of God to do good. But if you do evil, you should fear. That's what Romans 13 says. Is the government today, the power of the government, a terror to those who break the law? By and large, no. It's not a terror to the illegal immigrant who's been deported 39 times. He's not afraid. It's not a fear to those who are in the elite. Apparently, they believe that the system is so rigged that they can get away with it over and over, and there's no fear of the government. We have to restore the rightful respect. That's another word for fear. Respect, reverence, but yet also a human fear of consequences. We need men like Ed Martin. So I'm going to ask you to pray. Come back and be joined by Leo Holman. But I want to ask you first, have you ever heard of the MICE strategy? M-I-C-E. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
But with Brandon, it's always cutting edge stuff happening in the world. And it's not just from the political angle, because you can get that on other platforms, but it's always from the biblical angle. So you're dealing with a guy that loves Jesus, you're dealing with a guy that's very intelligent, you're dealing with a guy that is cutting edge conservatism, and you're dealing with a guy that wants to be biblical all at the same time. And so for that reason alone, I hope many, many people will not just lift up his ministry in prayer, but will also financially get behind it, because from the angle I'm trying to describe, he really is the only game in town. And we desperately need it in these last days. Can I get an amen to that?
All right. Have you guys ever heard, before I go to Leo, have you guys ever heard of the MICE acronym? M-I-C-E? Why is it that we have so many people that want to do evil against our republic? Why are they willing to not speak up, not speak out? Just sit in the tall grass. Why are others willing to carry the water for bad people, bad groups, bad ideologies, bad worldviews? I was talking with Michael yawned the other night, and he, without hesitating, said, well, it's really the mice strategy: money, ideology, career, and ego. He didn't even slow down. Most people in the interview would have never caught what he just said because he went over it so quickly and kept going on about what's going on with the Panama Canal and China down there with the Panama Canal. But I picked it up and I made a note. I didn't interrupt him. I didn't ask him to elaborate. I let him keep going because we had so much to get to in a short period of time. But I thought, look at that. That's an acronym we all should memorize. M-I-C-E, mice. Money. How are people compromised? Money. They're compromised by payoffs, by money, a job going to their spouse or their child, or for themselves when they get out of government. We have some judges. In fact, it's on my website today at worldviewreport.com. Worldviewreport.com, I've got a story where there is a judge, I can find it real quick, a judge who is making rulings, and yet here it is, Biden judge who ordered Trump to resume funding to left-wing illegal immigration groups, including one she worked for. Huh. This is not the first judge we've seen dealing with money being restored to NGOs when he sits on the board of an NGO himself. This is at least the second judge that I've found so far in my study and research for this broadcast. Money. They're compromised by money. Some are compromised by ideology. They agree with it. They're Islamist, and they've gotten into our government. They're globalist, they're in our government. They're Marxist, they're in our government. Whatever their ideology is, whatever their worldview is, your worldview is the foundation of your values is the foundation of your conduct. Some are just driven by ideology. Some are driven by their career. We'll advance your career. If you do this, turn a blind eye or go and do this, take care of this, we will advance your career. They're compromised by the advancement of their career. And others are compromised by their ego. And being compromised by your ego, that can mean we'll make you popular. We'll make sure you get invited to all the right private parties. We'll make sure you get invited to all the big events. We'll give you awards. We'll give you an award at a big old banquet. Put you up in front of people, give you an award. Ego, pride. That's another way people are compromised. And of course, ego and pride goes right along with people that can then be compromised with a honeypot, right? Their pride, their ego causes them to be open to being seduced. And then they find themselves in a room doing what they shouldn't do, and they've just, without knowing it, with a one-way mirror, been photographed and filmed. They're captured. So many in our government have had this acronym, MICE, money, ideology, career, and ego, used on them. We need more people, as I said before the break, like Ed Martin, who worked with Phyllis Schlafly for so many years, who knows the importance of our foundational republic being built on the character and nature of God, laws of nature, nature's God. One more story if we go to Leo. Look at this. This is from the 1819 news. Here's the headline. This is a brand new article today. We're setting ourselves up for destruction. Alabama officers lament removing God from law enforcement code of ethics. You know what I thought of when I heard that? I thought, that sounds exactly what the Nazis would do. When you go and study, and it's in one of my books, I think it's The Coming Religious Reich, the various orders by Hitler and his Nazi leadership to remove the Bible from churches, replacing it with Mein Kampf, take down the cross, put up the swastika, removing any kind of Christian education from the country. this is a matter of historical fact. And that's what I thought of immediately when I read it. Because if you want law enforcement to become your jackbooted thugs, you have to remove any belief of an accountability to God in this life and in the next. You don't take an oath to God. You take an oath to the government. The government becomes your God. And why on earth would any group do this? Well, the International Association of Chiefs of Police. Hold on. What? The International Association of Chiefs of Police. I'm sorry. I know there are some good chiefs of police, but how long have I warned this audience that most of your chiefs of police are no good? They're no good. They are spineless. They are cowards. They are manipulated. They are into situational ethics. They're into their own career. What did we just study with mice? Money, ideology, career. How did many of these police chiefs get there? Because they were known to be lapdogs. They were known to be weak men. Weak men who could be manipulated and told what to do by their masters on the city council, town council. They're more interested in their career. Now, am I condemning all police chiefs? No, I'm not. But I've told you over and over, in my 56 years, which will be this month, I have dealt with enough people at enough levels, firsthand testimony, to know that many, many of our police chiefs are no good. They are not there for the right reasons to do the right thing. It is a job. It's a job. It is a stepping stone to build a career to then jump off and run for sheriff, some of them. It's a jumping off point for some of them to then run for some other elected office they can go run for now. Or it's a jumping off point from there to go into some kind of private security or whatever else. It's a resume pattern. Not to mention it's a good job with a good pay and a good pension. And it feeds their ego. So there you go, part of the MICE program, career and ego. It's not people saying, I want to do this for the right reason. Are there some out there? Absolutely there are. You're going to read, there's one or two of them that are the good guys that are police chiefs that are mentioned in this article. But that is not the norm, I'm afraid. Because politicians don't look usually to hire independent thinkers who will do the right thing by their oath. They look, politicians do, to put police chiefs in power who will be their lapdog. That's why I'm a much bigger fan of sheriffs that are elected by the people. Does that mean you can't have corrupt sheriffs? Of course you can. Can you have elections stolen and sheriffs elected who weren't even elected by the people because it was rigged? Yes, you can. Can you have good people go in there for the right job who get compromised by the mice? Career and ego? Yes. But by and large, I find the elected officials of sheriffs easier to be accountable to the people. Well, here you go. The International Association of Chiefs of Police changed its code of ethics for the first time since 1957, omitting the word God. Officers often recite the code when they are sworn in as law enforcement officers. In many cases, officers are terminated for violating the code, which is held as a standard around the world. The IACP has 31,000 members in 106 countries. The IACP adopted the original code in 1957. In 2024, decided to change it to be, are you ready for it? Inclusive. Inclusive. The original code promised to protect the weak from violence, while the new version focuses more on protecting the public from unnecessary force of harming community members. However, the most controversial change is at the end of the code. Quote, I will constantly strive to achieve these principles, dedicating myself to my chosen profession, policing, end quote. The original code stated, dedicating myself before God. That has been removed. And one Alabama police officer said, you saw what happened when they took God out of schools. Mobile mayoral candidate and a former police chief. There you go. A good guy. Chief of Police Paul Prince, at least from what I'm reading here, was described as a man of faith, found himself calling to God in October of 2001 after he was shot 3 times on the line of duty. As he lay on the ground, convinced he would die, he returned to Jesus Christ for salvation. Or returned. While he understands not everyone has the same faith as some do believe in a higher power, he believes swearing to an oath of office to uphold the higher standards requires a higher power. What you're essentially doing as a police officer is you're swearing to an authority much higher than yourself, that you uphold the highest standards of character and integrity. And by removing that for the sake of appeasement, you're making a pledge on an oath to nothing, end quote. Now you wonder why our institutions are collapsing, because we've thrown out the template of what is the purpose and function of the law of government per Romans 13. Joining me now is Leo Holman. Leo, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, Brandon. Thanks for having me.
There's so much to get to, and I want to move quickly. Let's go right away to worldviewreport.com, your daily aggregated news site, because we're now hearing that Putin has drafted 160,000 men for the Russian military as the Ukraine war continues. I understand President Trump is very angry about all this. He wants peace. Putin has certain criteria. He's like, these things have to happen or I'm not signing a deal. It seems as though, Europe is pushing for World War III. Putin is continuing to say, I'm not going to be pushed into a corner and compromise my nation. You guys dragged your troops up to my border. U.S., you guys were the ones fighting this war. Even the New York Times came out now with a piece saying everything that you and I and David Pine and others, Colonel Manus, have been saying, which is our government was behind all of this, as we knew, from the color revolution in 2014 in Ukraine to shipping all kinds of armaments over there. 500 million rounds of ammo, I think the Times said, not to mention all the missiles and other things that were being shot deep into Russia, the 10 CIA military bases. And Putin is not just going to collapse to the demands of these people. And so he doesn't like what he's seeing. And now he's calling up 160,000. But I think that's just the beginning, isn't it, Leo?
Yeah, he's talking about increasing the overall size of his army to 1.5 million by this time next year, Brandon. When we started this war, he was about 800,000. So he's going up to 1.5 million man army.
So I'll ask you on the other side of the break, do you think the trajectory is toward World War III? That's what I want to ask Leo Holman. He's already shaking his head, yes. But I don't want the music to drown out his salient points that he wants to make. LeoHolman.com is his website, LeoHolman.com, and LeoHolman.substack.com. Ooh, that camera's dark. LeoHolman.substack.com. We'll be right back after this break. Hello, I'm Brandon House. Melissa and I have been taking Bella Grace, this powerful elixir, since last fall, 2023. The results have been amazing. My hands would crack and bleed, deep cuts and cracks every winter for years. No matter what we did, we couldn't get them to stop cracking and bleeding. This year, I took Bella Grace, no cracking, no bleeding. My acid reflux, gone. Haven't had to take a Pepsid. My hair growth, the last 2 times I had my hair cut, the lady had to use thinning shears on my hair. That's amazing. We've also received incredible feedback from you, our listening audience, and the impact it's had for you. This is loaded with astaxanthin. That's a powerful antioxidant. Collagen, but top grade collagen. Studies show 95% of it is being absorbed in the body because of the way they develop it. Then we have something called cat's claw. That's an anti-inflammatory from a vine in Peru. It's the bark, and it's an anti-inflammatory. There are about 80 clinical trials on Bella Grace. Please get a subscription now and save. MelissaHousebg.com. All right, welcome back. Glad you are with us. Leo Holman joins me, LeoHolman.com, LeoHolman.substack.com. Hey, don't forget, it is a week from this Tuesday that we will be in Milwaukee. That is Tuesday night, April 15th. Tuesday night, April 15th. It is free, but you must register. And I think we're now over 1,000 registered between phone and online. It is free, but you must register for the Worldview Radio Understanding the Times rally at the Waukesha Expo Center right outside of Milwaukee. You can register online at worldviewtube.com/events, worldviewtube.com/events. Okay? And if you don't have a way to register, you can use the number 901-825-0652, 901-825-0652. I'll be speaking. Dr. Andy Woods will be speaking, and our reporter from Israel, Aaron Lavarco, in the building. He'll be speaking. And there will be no shortage of things to talk about that night. It starts at 6:30, goes to 9:30. We will be taking an offering to help offset the cost of the building and giving the speakers an honorarium and paying for their hotel and their flight. I think the building's going to cost us around $4,000 or more. So again, come prepared for a free will offering if you would. Cash or checks work. I think Melissa will even have a device at the back of the room if you would like to make a contribution by credit card. You'll be able to do that as well. But please come prepared for helping us offset the cost, so we can at the very least break even. Okay. This will be our first Worldview rally we've done in 7 years, other than our national conference, but to do a Worldview rally on the road. So we're very excited to be able to go back out and see many of you again and meet some of you for the first time in person. All right. And yes, you'll be able to visit with the speakers and we're all accessible. Worldviewtube.com/events, worldviewtube.com/events. All right, Leo. It looks as though right now the trajectory is toward World War III. In fact, you even said to me on the phone today, I think a lot of this is going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, what they're saying about Putin. In other words, they are giving a narrative about Putin, and then they're going to do things to get a reaction to say, see, we told you so, right?
Exactly. Putin is reacting to rhetoric and actions from the West. It's really amazing to me that it's taken this long for him to really react this way. The NATO countries have been expanding for decades, and he sat back and done nothing. He's been in power for 24 years. And so he's watched the evolution, I guess we could call it, of NATO, which was from a relatively small defensive-natured alliance to an expanding, large, more offensive-nature military alliance. And now it's knocking right on his back door in the one place that he said he couldn't accept it, and that was Ukraine. And that has a lot to do with Russia's history. As you know, Brandon,
Yes.
that Russians have been invaded several times through that area of Ukraine over the course of their history. And now, we're seeing now in the world economy, President Trump seems to be blowing up the post-World War II rules-based order, which worked fairly well for a while, but the problem was it was based on debt and a lot of lies. And it's all being exposed now. The lies are being exposed. The CIA color revolutions in all these various countries are no longer under the rug. They've been exposed for everyone to see. The debt is just exploded to astronomical levels, and no politician on either side of the aisle has an answer for that. The BRICS countries are now forming. Hardly any countries want to buy the United States debt anymore. And so the United States is really between a rock and a hard place. It's got this rules-based international order that it's been heading up for 75 years, Brandon, but now it can't continue on under those parameters, which were ever expanding debt to pay for ever increasing budget deficits, ever increasing military budget deficits, and now you've got the BRICS countries saying, we're done with that. We don't want to be bossed around, or we don't want to have the United States telling us we have to do this, that, or the other. Accept the gay pride parades and the LGBTQ transvestites in the schoolrooms. We don't want to do all that. And you're going to put us under economic sanction and withhold grants and aid if we don't. And so you see a growing number of countries questioning this order because the United States seemed to have, as long as the United States was an honest leader of this rules-based order, I think it was working out fine. But over time, we've gradually, become more and more corrupt in our demands. And so it's falling apart. And once it starts falling apart, that creates a domino effect, because not only does your debt go up, up, and up, but you can't continue to increase the debt because countries don't want to buy your debt. And so that means you have a fading empire, the United States, and there's nothing more dangerous when in terms of war and peace than a crumbling empire. Empires don't just crumble. They usually take some sort of military action to try to prop up or prolong their status as the biggest, baddest country on the block. And I think that's what we see happening right now with the trade tariffs being notched into overdrive yesterday by President Trump. He had tariffs in his first term, but nothing like this, Brandon. And so economic war always precedes kinetic war. So if you look at what's going on economically, with the trade wars breaking out now full force, I think kinetic World War III is right around the corner.
And you're not saying, I want to clarify, you're not saying you're opposed to the tariffs, you're just saying the tariffs are a sign of what's coming.
Yes.
Because I'm in favor of the tariffs, to be honest with you, because I've been researching how much of our government was funded for so many years by tariffs, and therefore no taxes. I'm like,
well, see,
not to mention you're protecting jobs, American jobs, right? It makes people make stuff here in the country, move their stuff here, not buy the cheap garbage from China and other places. So it helps the American worker, protects the American worker. It's a form of taxation on other countries versus taxing internally. So I'm in favor of the tariffs. I know some people are confused 100%. By it. And I think there's a lot of propaganda on this, don't you think, Leo? Because I'm hearing conservatives who are thinking, oh, Trump's making big mistakes. I'm like, you're listening to the propaganda. This country was using tariffs for years to fund our central government and keep the American business protected and the worker and not tax the American people. So I'm for the tariffs, but you're saying that it's a sign of a trade war, an economic war, that usually is a sign you're about to go to world war.
Yes, and what got us into this point? We backed off of tariffs gradually and more increasingly over the last 75 years since World War II. And so this was part of the post-World War II liberal, rules-based globalist order, where the United States would espouse free trade, but free trade didn't mean fair trade. And so we cut our tariffs, and what happened then? We exported our entire industrial base out to China, Vietnam, Mexico, and all these other countries, right?
Cheap labor, which your national chambers of commerce love. And of course, I think the national chambers of commerce are a corrupt anti-American organization. That doesn't mean everybody that belongs understands that at the local level. Most people belong to the organization thinking it's a good group. They don't know. They're uneducated. But when we were fighting the globalist education agenda of America 2000, Goals 2000, School to Work, the Chamber of Commerce were the ones pushing it, because at the bottom line is always the bottom line. They don't care about America, ultimately, at least not first. They don't care about America first. They care about America maybe fourth or fifth or sixth or 10th. What they care about first is money, greed. That's the National Chambers of Commerce, bunch of greedy, corrupt people, in my experience and opinion.
Yes, and part of this rules-based order was we would send the jobs to these other countries, China in particular, and in exchange for that, they would ship back the products to our country at a cheaper rate, right? Americans get cheaper products. But the part of the agreement was also that China would buy our debt, and they would finance this basically situation that was very profitable for the elites, the business leaders, the elites that you just described that hobnob with the chambers of commerce. But it was not a good deal for the American worker. While these elites were getting wealthier and wealthier, the American worker, the middle class, has been basically hollowed out by this globalist world order. And so in comes President Trump and says, and that's what led to the election of President Trump, is that the people started figuring it out, why they're getting poorer and poorer, falling out of the middle class, and so they're naturally going to gravitate to a candidate like President Trump, who talks about America first, bringing jobs back, imposing tariffs, building plants here instead of shipping it overseas. The problem, though, Brandon, is these other countries are going to experience shockwaves. Countries like China's, their economy is already not in good shape. And now they're going to lose all of this income that they're getting selling products to America. That is going to make China a more hostile country. And so we're going to have to deal with a more hostile China. Russia, not so much, because Russia never had a huge trade relationship with the United States of America. But China is going to be the one to watch as we shift, as President Trump blows up this rules-based post-World War order and shifts to a new tariff-based, homegrown American, rebuild America's industrial base order.
And let's look, here's our buddy David Pine. He says that nearly 37% of our B-2 bombers, nuclear bombers force, has been forward deployed to Diego Garcia. That's a small British island. I guess they're getting ready for a strike on Iran, along with 10 nuclear-capable B-52 bombers. But as noted below, the U.S. can't destroy Iranian nuclear missile silos with conventional munitions because they are hardened and deep underground. They would have to employ nuclear weapons. I don't think President Trump is willing to use nukes on Iranian rights. Just imagine the propaganda value if an Iranian S-41 missile managed to shoot down one of our $2 billion B-2 bombers, or an Iranian hypersonic anti-ship missile takes out one of our 2 aircraft carriers in the region. There is a huge downside and no upside. Trump's Iran bombing plan, and there is no U.S. national security justification for doing it. What are your thoughts there, Leo?
Well, leave it to David Pine to enlighten us on issues like that. I had never heard that anywhere before. I don't know about you, Brandon, that it would actually take a nuclear bomb.
Well, he's been saying it on my show. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw it last night. Yeah. I'd never heard that it would require nuclear bombing in order to destroy Iran's nuclear facilities. That is very interesting. And I have no reason to doubt that it's true, because everything else David Pine has told us is definitely been coming true. And so that, that adds a new element to it, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then, of course, as he predicted, he said the Chinese blockade exercise is exactly what I've been predicting China would do since Inauguration Day. Blockade Taiwan in early April. If Trump defends Taiwan military, the Taiwanese military, the U.S. will come under a massive Chinese cyber attack on day one of major combat operations that will take down all U.S. critical infrastructure and cause the U.S. government to collapse, America to break apart, tens of millions of Americans to starve, and cause our military to melt away, leaving us defenseless against a Chinese invasion of the U.S. West Coast. Now, most Americans have no idea what I just read.
No.
They're eat and drink and be merry, for tomorrow we die. Well, they're about to die, all right.
It's all about the chips.
We're not changing courses. Now, we are who we are. We're committed to the truth that we are committed to. Worldview Tube is a broadcast network that I started in 2006, but it's based on my 35 years as an author and speaker and commentator. Worldview Tube is here to defend the truth of a Christian worldview. And we believe we can apply it to all areas of life, like law, science, economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion, major issues.
At worldviewtube.com, we provide news from around the globe that isn't typically covered by mainstream media. Visit worldviewtube.com to watch our experts and analysts discuss all your favorite topics on our 24/7 live stream. Explore our extensive collection of unfiltered and uncensored content from 35 years of production. Go to worldviewtube.com today. Also find us on all of these major platforms and download our Worldview Tube mobile app.
LeoHolman.com is his website, and LeoHolman.substack.com. He joins us again. Let's pick it up where we left off at the break. No calls today because there's so much yet to get to.
Yeah. I mean,
you just mentioned it's about the chips. Can you imagine, let me just tell you right now. We are already, Leo, in fact, it's one of the stories I was going to deal with tonight. Doctors are refusing to prescribe antibiotics as part of the conspirators' depopulation plan. Okay. My wife, as you guys know, handles donor relations and customer support. She's been telling me for a few months that our audience, our listeners, our listening friends are telling her that they're having a hard time getting some of their medications. They go to the pharmacy to get their meds filled and they don't have them. They can't get nebulizers. I'm not saying this is happening to everybody, but it's happening to enough that we're now hearing about it. Now we have the expose saying that doctors are refusing to prescribe these antibiotics. And of course, antibiotics are oftentimes maybe overprescribed, so you have to be careful so your body doesn't become immune to them. But they are very important. And I'm pretty sure if I didn't have an antibiotic last fall when I got pneumonia, I would be dead. I mean, I was so down for the count. Physically, literally, made it to the bedroom, collapsed on the bed, did not have the physical strength to take off my shoes. I had 103 temp. I was going down fast. I and my wife, of course, walked down the hall and got an antibiotic. I didn't have to go to the doctor. Well, can you imagine if the power grid were down? If just-in-time inventory was disrupted? If there was a supply shortage because we've gone to war with China and they've stopped shipping our antibiotics to us? Can you imagine how long it would take for people like me to die if you got seriously ill with something like pneumonia or something that could be treated with antibiotic? So you've got chips coming out of Taiwan, which could be grabbed up and stopped from coming here that support so much of our infrastructure. And then out of China, you've got the antibiotics. Most Americans have no clue what you and I are talking about right now. None.
Yeah, the scenario I painted in that previous segment of your program today, Brandon, China is the one country that I think President Trump does not have the upper hand with when it comes to a trade war. Because it would take several years, at least, to ramp up the United States industrial base to replace all that's coming out of China right now that makes our economy run and gives people the products that they need. And so, China could just say, okay, we're taking Taiwan. You're not going to get any more chips for your semiconductors and everything else that you use in your high-tech American industry. Then, okay, next we're going to stop sending you antibiotics. All those over-the-counter meds that you depend on, ibuprofen and Tylenol, that's all made with stuff out of China. We're going to stop sending that as well. Could you imagine, Brandon, that would wake people up in a hurry, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And what happens when you start having a breakdown in your just-in-time inventory for all kinds of other drugs? Blood pressure, diabetes. But again, we should be a nation that is not panicking, but we should be a nation that is preparing. China is preparing for war, and they've been preparing for war. Russia is preparing for war. Russia has all kinds of bunkers. Russia is stockpiling. China's doing the same, but not here in the U.S. Do we hear PSAs telling everybody stock up on your medications, be prepared to go 60 or 90 plus days?
Even the European countries are telling their populations that now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, then we have people like Mark Levin. Mark Levin was supposedly, according to David Pine, was one of the people recommending Mike Waltz to Trump. I don't trust Mark Levin. He's part of so many things that are wrong. Mark Levin is. He was screaming at his audience when anyone questioned the Republican Party. When the Tea Party was coming up, he would scream at his audience. And then I guess when he figured out which way the wind was blowing, he got on the side of that. Sean Hannity was basically a never Trumper. All these guys have been never. Fox News is full of them until Trump wins. Then all of a sudden they kiss the ring so they can get access for ratings. The Republican Party and the so-called conservative media are made up of a bunch of losers that are not interested in the country. They're only interested in their audience, and they'll change on a dime, and people think, oh, look how great Sean Hannity is, and how great Laura Ingraham is, and how great Mark Levin is. These people would throw you off a boat if they could get paid $1 for it, in my opinion. These people could care less. They're only interested in their careers, and many of them have never liked Donald Trump. And they were screaming and hollering at the Tea Party people until they realized they had to get on the right side of that one because their ratings cratered. Remember that?
I do. It goes back to your opening monologue with the MICE acronym. Career and income. That's what they're watching out for more than anything, Brandon. Not the good of the country. So, yeah, the media is corrupt. The government is corrupt. The military is corrupt. It all goes back to those same principles, MICE. One of those four things has got a hold of people in just about every major industry in America right now.
Yep. The money, ideology, career, and ego.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So David Pine he has a Substack saying, listen, this is what President Trump needs to do to avoid war with China. We had a guest the other night explaining what President Trump needs to do to avoid war with Iran, and that's not being discussed. And that is get our intelligence communities in there, bolstering the Persian people who want the Iranian regime gone. Let the people do it, but don't set them up to go do it and then not be there and have their back. That's what I think a lot of them are afraid of, because we've done that to some of them in other countries. We'll support you if you guys will overthrow your people. Then they move in for a revolution of freedom, and we're nowhere to be found, and they get slaughtered.
Exactly. That's the last thing we want to see happen. Your interview with Annie Cyrus a few nights ago was prescient, I thought. She brought up a good point that we have a person who could take that country in a different direction. Did she say it was the Shah's son?
It's the Shah's son. Exactly right.
Yeah. And so I think President Trump needs to seriously look at other alternatives rather than bomb.
And there are rumors that Mike Waltz might be losing his job. We'll see if that comes true, but there are leaks saying that he might be about to lose his job. Yeah, wow. All right, leoholman.com, leoholman.substack.com. Hold right there, Leo. Hey, stay tuned for Crosstalk coming up at the top of the hour with Jim Schneider at vcy.org. V as in Victor, vcy.org. Now, don't forget, we're coming up fast, April 15th. That's a Tuesday night. Our Worldview Rally, Worldview Radio Understanding the Times Rally, April 15th at the Waukesha Expo Center. It's free, but you got to register. worldviewtube.com/events. Take care. And we're back with WROS out of Jacksonville, Florida, and WorldviewTube and our audience here. Okay, so Leo, what do you think? What do you think we're going to see happen between now and as the year plays out? What are you really watching? I mean, we already discussed some of it, but what are your worst fears right now? What do you think is a real possibility? And what are you personally, you and your family, doing to prepare?
I think a widening trade war leading to kinetic war is the scenario that I most dread, because everybody is going to feel the pain of that. It's not going to be like previous wars where only the people who had sons who volunteered to go fight them were impacted. And no one else really cared what happened in Iraq or Afghanistan or what have you, Libya, Syria, all these operations that have been done over the years. If we head into anything approaching a world war, the economy will falter, okay? Because all of these products we get will be cut off by our new enemies. The problem is we've made China into a huge superpower, both economically and militarily over the last 50, 60 years. Because of our unfair trade policies, we have made them a very wealthy country. We have made them a very powerful country militarily. And now they see an opportunity, as we talked about earlier, especially if it gets triggered by these massive tariffs, to go ahead and take Taiwan. Then they will control the international chip market, along with all of these other things we talked about. And it's going to take America, I would think, at least 5-6 years, Brandon, to ramp up and even come close to making up all of that industrial capacity that we shipped over to China and other countries over the last 50, 60 years.
Okay, so where do you think we're going with the U.S. dollar? I mean, the market's down, 1,500 points today. Gold is up a record high. Where do you think this is all going from that standpoint?
I think the dollar is going to continue to be weakened as these trade proposals kick in. I think gold will, I'm with Michael Weiner on your show, who predicted, I think, 3,800 an ounce for gold by the end of the year.
He did.
You know, that sounded a little aggressive at the time about 3 weeks ago, but heck, now it's over 3,100. So, yeah, I think Weiner's probably right on target with that.
All right. Anything else you're watching before I let you go?
That's pretty much it.
Okay. What do you got over at your Substack?
Talking a lot about the issues we were talking about here today: Ukraine, Russia, foreign policy, and I haven't touched too much on tariffs yet, Brandon, because
Okay.
I've been waiting to see how it would flesh out.
Okay. Well, LeoHolman.com and LeoHolman.substack.com. Our executive producer for Worldview Report, our nightly newscast. Thank you, Leo.
Thank you, Brandon.
Leo
Appreciate it.
Holman checking in. By the way, we mentioned during the broadcast there meds, right? Let me grab this here. This is what all of you better have a bunch of. The emergency medical kit from the Wellness Company at worldviewhealthcare.com. Worldviewhealthcare.com. When I got pneumonia last year, had that temp of 103, was I waited too long because we had election night, right? And then the day after the election, I had people here. So I don't like doctors anyway. It's not personally don't like them. I don't like going to them. So I waited too long. And isn't that what happened during COVID? So many people waited too long to go to the doctor and to get treated. Well, your own host did it. So I can't blame people when they do that. It's human nature, I think, sometimes, particularly for those of us who don't like going to the doctor. But fortunately, we had the wellness kit down the hall. We have about 5 or 6 of these. And my wife walked down the hall and got one and got me on the amoxicillin. And within hours, I was starting to already feel better. Now, if we have a trade war with China, if we have this economic war, if we have a cutoff of prescriptions, we're already getting reports that doctors are refusing to prescribe antibiotics. You need to go ahead and get loaded up, folks. This is not a joke. Worldviewhealthcare.com if you want more information on this. Worldviewhealthcare.com, okay? This is also the right time to make sure that you can get a hold of family and friends. Do you have children that live in another state? You have grandbabies that live in another state? Do you have senior adult parents that live in another state? Should we have a cyber attack on this country as part of war, as David Pine was talking about in his X account the other day, are you going to be able to get on the cell phone and call your family members? Probably not. So you might want to go to worldviewtalk.com. Worldviewtalk.com. There at worldviewtalk.com, you can get your satellite phones. You can also get your bivvies, where you can use your cell phone to compose the message, but you don't send it to a cell tower. You hit send because you've synced the little bivvy device to your cell phone, and the text message goes through the bivvy to a satellite down to your family member that has one of those little bivvies. And then solar generators. I have one of those. All of that's available at worldviewtalk.com or by calling 1-866-738-3224, 1-866-738-3224, or worldviewtalk.com. Don't panic, but you better prepare, folks. All right?
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries,